So here we are, people, at the end of a 33-day journey. Blood, sweat, tears have been spilt over both of these servers. A collective over 1,400 hours of gameplay on both of these servers between 22 different combatants. And where are we at now? Well, that's what this video is about to discover. Before we dive into the numbers, I want to do a little bit of a drive around, not really drive around, a bit of a fly around of Crawford Farms before and after. So here we are on a brand new save in new farmer mode. We've sold off all the equipment, and this is the exact condition both teams were handed at the start of this challenge on March 1st. So as you can see, there's no equipment in the garage. Both teams had 50 sheep and 50 pigs at the start. And they were basically tasked with having to maintain 50 pigs and 50 sheep throughout the entire competition, all the way up to the very bitter end. I have to say, when you see how the server is on both sides at the end, it was a very bitter, cold end. Let's go ahead and get a little altitude. Are looking across the map at this point, and we're going to try to, as best as we can, basically explore through the air, taking about the same path on this game save and then Team Red's final game save at around 8:36 in the morning of spring, day 1, year 3. Then we'll do the same thing, Team Green, and see how each team has, well, can pretty much completely changed the face of this map. Let's go ahead and pull up the mini map so you can see where we're going here. We are going north at this point toward the sawmill. Look at all those glorious trees. I guarantee you're going to find a whole lot less trees on the next 2 game saves. Specifically, this view right here. Now we are moving west across the northern side of the map. And we're going to try to turn then south here over field 3. Way south across the western side. Off to our left, we can see just a little bit left of the cow area. BGA is coming up on our left toward the far southern part of the map. And we will try to turn east. Church. To the left, we can see where we started out. Our biogas plant to our right. Trying to point out distinct landmarks that are not going to be changing between the 3 game saves because the landscape and the foliage could be significantly different. First off, because both servers are covered in snow at this point in year 3. And as such, it's going to be a little bit difficult to find other things like waterways and roads. Just circle on back here. And, well, I'll meet you over on Team Red's server. Ha ha ha, you thought I was gonna let you see the money, but no, no, no. We have obscured the money so that, well, we're not gonna give that little secret quite yet away on either side. You're gonna have to wait for the charts toward the end of the video. But here we are, Team Red server. Now you can see we are at 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Early spring, again, 8:37, 8:38 a.m. Let's take a look around once again. Get a little bit of a feel. It's a little bit hazy this morning. Not exactly the most clear skies, but kind of get the idea here. And you can see a stark difference in the amount of trees. In the north, back Team Red, you can't really tell from the fact that well, everything's covered in snow, but Team Red really made some significant changes to the overall field landscape of the map, to the point where, well, most of the east side of the map was a field, and a very large portion of the west side of the map was a field. Let's go ahead and show you now. We have indeed 50 pigs, 55 sheep, just about out of food, but darn it, they've got themselves food and water, so they are good to go. And I do want to show you basically what we're talking about here. Whoa! Oh, a little fun, no doubt. At any rate, we had a significant field right here, and then we had another large field in this general vicinity. Look at the deforestation that is going on. Now, at the start of the challenge, we were going to keep track of, the plan was to keep track of the number of trees cut. And both sides pretty much had the idea that we would periodically download the game save, rummage through save game file, and basically discover on each side how many trees were cut, and then that would be our ballpark. Well, for whatever reason, the multiplayer server was not keeping track of the number of trees cut. So, in the end, what we agreed on doing was basically just planting the same number of trees, which happened to be the number of trees that Team Green had already planted, 620. So they got a reprieve from planting trees after the first year. And basically Team Red then was tasked with matching them with trees planted. We did indeed get that done. So we didn't have to replant all those trees, because really we didn't have any idea of how many trees we needed to replant. Now that statistic is kept with respect to the single player, but for whatever reason it was not being kept in the single player file. Again, we're going to spin around here. We've got our church to the left. We've got our BGA coming up here to our right. And that, my friends, is kind of just a quick aerial fly around of Team Red's server at the very end. Let's go and jump on over and check out Team Green's server at the same time frame, again around 8:36 8:37 a.m. on the first day of spring, the start of year 3. Team Green, 21 degrees Fahrenheit ground temperature, 8:36 a.m. And let's just validate that these guys do indeed have their 50 pigs and 51 sheep. So they are also good to the requirements. And as I said, let's take a look around and see how Team Green has changed this map for the better or for the worse. So just out of the gate, it does appear that they have indeed 4 trees left uncut than Team Red did. Neither team really got too far down into the south as far as its deforestation initiatives. But you can see Team Green did do their fair share of work here in the north by the sawmill. Both east and west. Just didn't quite make it down as far as Team Red did. And quite frankly, I don't have much in the way of love for forestry, so I could very much appreciate their interest in doing as little forestry as humanly possible. I'd say forestry is easy money, and when it is close to the sawmill, then it makes it pretty hard to not get into doing forestry, especially when you start out with limited funds. So each team started with $1,059,000, and that was what they had to basically start buying equipment, paying for seed, paying for fertilizer. And remember, they had to buy enough equipment to keep 10 players busy. 11 players, actually. Each server had 10 slots, so it was 10 concurrent players at a max, but each team had 1 alternate. So each team consisted of 11 total players. Early on, forestry was going to be a very big aspect to get that extra money to buy that equipment in order to keep having a full team from sitting idle. Also, with this particular geo, both teams found it difficult to get good planting temperatures in order to get those seeds in the ground within a reasonable time frame, because this geo is brutal. Both teams faced early winters, threatening to basically completely wipe out their harvest. In fact, it's quite possible some teams lost crop as a result of not being able to get it out of the ground before the ground froze. So being on Team Red, I know one concern we had was very much, would we be able to get all of our crop harvested before the ground froze? And that's one reason why we planted a lot of potatoes in year 1 and sugar beets in year 2, because we learned that as long as you top those particular crops, then they're not damaged by frozen ground. And worst case scenario, we could come in after the fact in the spring and possibly finish those harvests, other than the fact that we had a hard deadline on the first day of spring in year 3. So with that, let's go take a look at how the points were assessed and what everybody wants to know. How did the points fall in Team Red's favor and in Team Green's favor? We have seen this points breakdown at the mid-challenge review, but let's go over it just one more time. We have 100 points for the team with the highest bank balance at the end. We have another 100 points for the team with the lowest collective worked time based on save game in stats. Now that has changed slightly since the mid-challenge review. In that at the mid-challenge review, we looked at the lowest collective played time based on the in-game stats. But I don't think that was tracking really what we wanted to track. Honestly, I don't think worked time is tracking what I really wanted to track. What I really wanted to track was the team that spent the least amount of time on the server. But there was a very insignificant statistical difference between the collective played time on the server. In the end, a total difference of just 49 minutes over the course of about 25,000 minutes. So that really was not significant enough to really be a delineation. But worked time on the server is definitely different between the two teams. So we all have agreed that's what we're going to go with. 25 points for the team with the lowest fuel usage based on in-game stats. The purpose for this was try to find a team that basically was the most efficient with getting their work done, meaning that they used the least amount of fuel. 25 points for the team with the highest worked hectares based on the, again, save game stats at the end. This was to reward the team with the most worked ground in the end. 25 points to the team with the highest threshed hectares based on save game stats. The purpose of this was to reward the team that had harvested the most ground. 25 points with the team with the least number of total missions, field, and transport. Again, we're talking about trying to be efficient here with our money, and therefore points go to the team that has basically gotten money from AI farmers the least. The big wild card here is 50 points goes to the team with the most owned plots at the end. Each team started with the new farmer land at the start, so each team had the same plots to begin with. Team Red was challenged with only being able to buy odd number of plots until we owned all of the odd number fields, then we could buy even fields. Team Green was challenged with only being able to buy even number fields until they, once again, owned all the even fields, and at that point, they could then buy odd number of fields, and the unnumbered areas were just complete fair game. So let's take a look and see how some of these stats have broken down. Now, before we jump straight to the money shot with respect to in-game statistics and their points breakdown, I want to look at some other stats that were in the save games compared to both teams and basically just talk a little bit about how each team possibly went about this challenge. Now, I've got firsthand knowledge with Case IH. I don't really have much knowledge other than observation with respect to Team John Deere. But what we're looking at here is we're looking at seed usage, spray usage, sown hectares, so fields, the amount of planting that we've done, fertilized hectares, plowed hectares, the bale count, the number of animals that we've been bred, cows, sheep, and pigs. So if we take a look here, Case IH numbers. Case IH did 124,241 liters or units. I'm just going to call them units because I don't know if they're truly liters or not, because that is a heck of a lot of pallets of seed. 124,241 units of seed. 3,736,288 units of spray. Now, spray is going to probably be herbicide, liquid fertilizer, slurry, and digestate. Sown hectares, 267. Fertilized hectares, 954. So you can see those fertilizing contracts are really showing up there in the fertilized hectares range. Plowed hectares, 615. Bale count, we were bale crazy. 924 total bales for Case IH. Now, that doesn't shake a stick at the number of bales that Pros versus Joe's challenge put together. But man, 924 bales over the course of just 33 game days and 2 game years is still a significant number. We managed to breed a total of 0 cows because we chose to go with beef cattle as opposed to milk cattle. We bred 55 sheep, and in the end, we had 511 piglets. Now, let's take a look and see how John Deere's stats broke down for these same categories. John Deere used 93,905 units of seed, significantly less seed usage. Will we see a significantly less amount of hectares sown? We'll only find out here in a moment. Spray usage, 4,595,006 units. Nearly 800,000 more units of either liquid fertilizer, herbicide, slurry, or digestate. Sown hectares, 208. So nearly 59 hectares less than Case IH. Fertilized hectares, 755. Nearly 200 less hectares fertilized. That is 100%. Again, back to Case IH was grabbing every contract possible because we knew at the mid-year or mid-challenge break, we knew that we were leading the most contracts. We were not going to get the points for the least number of contracts. We knew John Deere, they knew the number of contracts we had done at this point and basically could count down and figure out how many contracts they could accept, assuming we took 0 more to stay under. So we just took every single contract that came up because we knew that we were not going to get those points. Plowed hectares, 307. Nearly half, over half the number of plowed hectares. Again, like I said, we took every contract out there. Bale count, 779. Now, animals bred is where the money is, at least with this stat slide. Cows bred, 233. Team John Deere, they went straight to the milkers. They were not going to make much money at all off of those cows in the first year, but they were banking. They were banking on pumping out the milk in year 2, and they were banking on having calves, which were basically free money in year 2, and they got 233 free money calves to sell at the end of year 3. 75 sheep were bred on the Team John Deere side, and a whopping 5,262 piglets. They've gone on to say after the challenge's end that they were really struggling with keeping up with all the piglets. Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't put in a second or a third or a fourth pig area because, quite frankly, Razdak, that's how he beat me in the very first challenge at Farm Sim 2019, way back at the start of 2019, was he loaded up on porkies. So let's move on to the money-making slide and see which team truly came out on top. Was it Case IH or Team John Deere? Just as a refresher, we are looking at fuel usage, worked hectares, threshed hectares, contracts, worked time, planted trees, bank balance, and land owned. Now, the first stat is just there really to fill out the slide. Distance traveled, but it is kind of an interesting statistic. So let's just see how did Case IH fare in the points. Distance traveled, 10,351 units. I honestly don't think that is kilometers, given the fact that the map is 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers squared. I don't know if that's meters. That means we traveled 10 kilometers. I can't imagine that either. I don't know what that is, but it's a number. Irregardless of the measure of unit, it is a number. Fuel usage, 26,942 units. Could that be liters? I don't know. That's a lot of fuel. Hands down, if it is liters, that is a lot of fuel to have been burnt over 33 game days over 2 game years. 2,687 worked hectares. 362 total threshed hectares. 192 contracts. Like I said, we knew out the gate we were not going to win the least number of contracts, and we didn't care. We were just going for money. Worked time, 8,740 units. Might be minutes. I don't think it's hours. Might be hours. Heck, I don't know. Units. We're just calling them units. Both teams planted 620 trees. Now for the money shot, $4,296,978. That was the closing bank balance for Team Red. And in the end, we owned 83 of the 88 available plots on the map. Now, let's compare Team John Deere's numbers to Team Case and see who is going to be crowned as, well, the best brand in Farm Sim 19. Team John Deere had 8,641 units traveled. Okay, so now for the next set of statistics, they're all point earners. And the team with the winning points is going to be marked in yellow, whereas the team with the losing number of points is going to be, again, marked in white. Fuel usage. Holy cow. 3,298,395,136 units of fuel. Team John Deere, what on earth did you do? So in later discussions, it seems that they had a truck that required an insane amount of fuel. Apparently they were always refueling it. And honestly, I would have gotten rid of that truck if I was having to refuel it 3, 4, or 5 times more often than a tractor with the same number of hours usage. I would have ditched that, knowing that one of the stats that's giving us points is the least amount of fuel used. So Team Case takes 25 points for 26,942 units of fuel used. Team John Deere, 1,784 worked hectares. So once again, Case IH taking another 25 points for the most worked hectares at the end of the years. Team John Deere redeems itself a little bit with 406 threshed hectares. So they were able to basically thresh more, harvest more, possibly with a conventional harvester than Case IH. And no doubt, because seriously, we had half the map in beets in the last year. And apparently, beet harvesting is not factored in as threshed. Contracts, 65 contracts. Team John Deere gets another 25 points because of the least number of contracts used. So we are now tied, 50 points to 50 points. Worked time. Now again, this statistic has changed. It was playtime, but we had an insignificant statistical difference between the two teams, so we switched it up to worked time. 7,055 units to Team John Deere. They are the first to be awarded 100 points for 1,700 units less of worked time. We're coming into the final stretch here, people. So planted trees is a wash. 620 trees each. We've said it before. The server, for whatever reason, does not track trees cut. So we could not make sure that we planted the same number of trees as we cut. So we basically just agreed to plant the same number of trees as Team John Deere already had planted. So 620 to 620, that's even Steven, no points awarded for that column. Bank balance. So at the end of year 2, On the final day, when the clock struck midnight as it rolled over into spring for the year 3, all the silage that was going to be going into the BGA was in there. And in the end, Team John Deere had $325,291 in the bank. That gives Case IH 100 points for having the highest bank balance of $4,296,978. So we are now even Steven. Both teams have 150 points. Case IH got 25 points for fuel used and worked hectares and 100 points for bank balance. Team John Deere has gotten 150 points, 25 from threshed hectares and contracts, and then 100 points for worked time. As was expected, the biggest wild card is who could own the most land. I have to say, it may already be evident, based on the bank balance, who possibly could afford the most land, but drum roll, please. The team with the most land owned is Case IH with 83 plots. Team John Deere put up a heck of a fight, buying 76 total plots in the end, but it just was not enough to overcome Team Case IH's basically war chest of money. Now, what really came to Case IH's aid? Well, that is we had a mod that really helped us out quite a bit. No fault of our own, no fault of Team John Deere for not thinking of it, but we had a BGA that paid out pretty good money, $500 per 1,000 liters for potatoes and sugar beets. The default BGA in Crawford Farms doesn't pay out money, or if it does, it pays out a piddly $150 per 1,000 liters for beets and sugar beets and potatoes. So in the end, we had a significant advantage for planting beets and potatoes. And boy, did we ever plant sugar beets in year 2. If you didn't see that 3-hour live stream, go check it out because it was epic. We had 4 harvesters and 5 guys running trucks to keep up with those 4 harvesters. And, well, like I said, we planted half the map, physically half the map or so, in sugar beets. In the end, this was a heck of a fun challenge. I know we had a great time on both sides. 22 new friends have been formed on both sides, and it was a really great time. And all of the trash talk was completely in jest. In the end, sure, Case IH won, but honestly, 22 players won. In the end, both teams are winners. And to that, I want to thank Raznick and everyone over on Team Green. I want to thank everyone over on Team Red for participating in this crazy, harebrained idea that I dreamt up. So until next time, happy farming. I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and like this video. Thanks.